Joining me now is a conservative legend who has gotten like the biggest applause I've ever heard, Senator Ted Cruz of Texas. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
You know, this is my home state, Florida, and there was a little bit of trepidation when we began to see all the New York license plates. Like, are they bringing their politics is the question, but we've seen voter registration here skyrocket for Republicans, historic levels actually over Democrats. There's a fear in Texas as well. What are you seeing happen in the state of Texas?
So I think in both Florida and Texas, there are two types of migration. Number one, there are people that are in blue states, whether New York or California or Illinois, who are just fed up. They can't stand the craziness. They can't stand the insanity. And they look across the country and they say, where do they want to go? And it seems like a lot of New Yorkers want to come to Florida. A lot of Californians want to come to Texas. And the folks that make that choice, the data actually shows in Texas, they're more conservative than the median voter. They move to Texas and they buy a pickup truck and they get a shotgun and they are, I call them refugees for freedom. Those folks, I welcome to Texas, I welcome to Florida. Now, there's another group, which is a company moves to Texas or Florida, and they transfer all their employees. And those employees decide, okay, I'm going to stay with my job, I'm just going to go ahead and move. Those folks haven't necessarily decided that they want freedom, that they want the values of the state they're moving to. And I think many of those folks still vote exactly like where they did where they came from. And we've got some of both. And so how those two balance out, time will tell.
That is a really nuanced and fascinating distinction. I hope the former outweighs the latter.
Amen.
One thing we're seeing, another shift, is among Latino voters. When you look at Quinnipiac left-wing poll, 55% in June approved of Joe Biden. Last June, 26% this June, 19% now. I mean, this is like a tectonic shift in the world of politics.
Look, it is, I hope, generational, and it's transformative. The Hispanic community is seeing that the far left agenda, the socialist agenda, is a disaster. And there's no place that's playing out more strongly than in South Texas. You look at South Texas. South Texas has been Democrat for over 100 years. We had a special election just a few weeks back in Texas, in a district right along the Gulf Coast. It runs from just south of Corpus Christi all the way down to Brownsville, so the southern tip of Texas. It's a seat that hasn't been held by a Republican since 1871. And the special election elected Myra Flores, a Republican, fantastic victory. I supported her, am campaigning for her. And I'll make a prediction right now. I think in November, South Texas is turning red. I think we could elect 3 Republican members of Congress, and they're all Hispanic women. They're all conservatives. I've endorsed all 3. I'm campaigning for all 3. And that is, I believe, a generational sea change.
And then you have Kayleigh Vega in Virginia. I mean, a wave. It's the year of the Latino woman in the Republican Party.
Well, and I'll tell you, with Kayleigh had a very competitive primary. And I endorsed Kayleigh in that primary. And I came and campaigned with Kayleigh the day before the primary. We did rallies throughout the district. Kayleigh is an amazing story. She is the daughter of immigrants from El Salvador. Her brother was shot and nearly killed by MS-13. So she knows firsthand the perils of illegal immigration. She is married to a soldier. The two of them were stationed in Korea together. And she herself is a cop. And she is dynamic. She's also the mom of 2 teenagers. And campaigning with her, it was fantastic to see that victory. And she's going to beat a Democrat incumbent. We're going to come into January with 4 new Republicans, all Hispanic women, all conservatives. And I can't wait to see Nancy Pelosi and AOC explain to them how illegal immigration really isn't a problem and they know better.
Oh, that will be great to watch. We call them the quad on Outnumbered instead of the squad. So
awesome.
a little twist there. And also with Kayleigh Vega, she did not have great name recognition and she was outspent. And thanks to you, others, herself, of course, but the support of the conservative movement, she crossed the finish line there. I got to ask you what you think on the issue of illegal immigration. When you hear Mayor Eric Adams talking about the real burden of illegal immigrants and Muriel Bowser asking for a federal response, I mean, being from Texas, you've got to just wow.
It is utterly insane, and the hypocrisy knows no bounds. To see the mayor of New York and the mayor of D.C. within a week of each other say, oh my goodness, illegal immigration is really a burden on us. It's like, well, no kidding. maybe you ought to talk to the guys in your own party that are causing it. And if they think it's bad in New York or D.C., they ought to come to South Texas. They ought to come to Laredo or McAllen or Eagle Pass or Del Rio, where those communities. I was just down on the border last weekend. I brought 7 senators down to the Rio Grande Valley to see firsthand. It's worse than it's ever been. And those communities, the jails are full, the hospitals are overflowing, the schools are overflowing. They're facing crime because of 3 million illegal immigrants. And I sat down with farmers and ranchers who showed me photograph after photograph of dead bodies they find on their ranches, people abandoned by the coyotes who die in the heat. It is horrific. It's inhuman. And the Democrats don't give a damn.
Yeah, and you mentioned that you found a little yellow wristband there that clearly would have been on the arm of a child.
Yeah.
And you mentioned these multicolored wristbands, right, are codes for the smugglers.
Yes.
Is that right?
So just about every illegal alien who comes in is wearing a colored plastic wristband. And the colors correspond to how much they owe the cartels. And almost all of them come in still owing thousands of dollars to the cartels. When you're down by the Rio Grande, there are literally hundreds of them laying on the ground. And so you can just go pick them up. And what happens, so they cross over and they go find a Border Patrol agent. It's not like the Border Patrol agents are catching them. They go look for the Border Patrol agent, and they'll have a name and a number and an address of someone in the United States. And Joe Biden and Kamala Harris are the last mile of the human trafficking network. They take them wherever they want to go. That means whatever city you live in, New York, D.C., or somewhere else, Joe Biden is flying illegal immigrants to your town. But when they get there, they're still in debt to the cartels. And so you get teenage boys that are working for Mexican drug cartels. And even worse, you get teenage girls, many of whom are trapped in sex slavery. That the way they pay off their debt to the cartel is they get trapped and forced to work as prostitutes. And you think about, okay, imagine you're a 15-year-old girl in Honduras, and you're looking north, you're imagining freedom, you're imagining life in America, and 6 months later, you're trapped in sex slavery in a living hell. That's what Joe Biden's given us. And the reason I say he doesn't care, saying he doesn't care sounds harsh.
Yeah.
But if he cared, he'd do something about it. He has the ability to stop this. The last year Trump was in office, we had the lowest illegal immigration in 45 years. We know Biden doesn't care because he's keeping the same policies in place that caused this to happen over and over and over again.
I don't think it's harsh at all because they paint themselves as the great humanitarians. And one of the crazy things to me, and it doesn't get a lot of attention in any media really, we cover it on Outnumbered, is these emergency intake facilities that these young girls were placed in, kids on suicide watch lists, young girls having to use the bathroom in plastic bags. This is not humanitarian to incentivize this kind of behavior and put these kids in these facilities. Have you ever been to one of these? I know they're under wraps and it's hard to get into them.
So I've been to the cages where they're detaining kids, where they're detaining little girls and little boys. You may recall last year when the Biden administration wouldn't allow any cameras in, where I brought 19 senators there last year, and I pulled out my cell phone and began taking video and cameras, and Biden had sent a little political staffer to jump in front of my phone and say, "You can't show this." Yeah. And I was like, "Want to bet?" And we put out the pictures and footage. You know what the Biden administration's excuse was for not allowing? Fox wanted to send a TV camera. They said no. You know why?
What was
they
the
said
reason?
COVID.
COVID, right.
They said the cameraman might have COVID. Now, mind you, in the Biden cages, the rate of COVID positivity a year ago was over 10%.
Yeah.
But they claimed one cameraman from a TV station might have COVID, so you can't take any pictures.
As they're
absurd.
rolling back Title 42 because of COVID being okay. Great. Well, thank you for joining us. I've got to let you go, but I will say you had quite the poker game the other night. I watched it. Nice hand, well played. You called one of the poker greats and you won.
So it was spectacular. I actually played last year, but they're airing the episodes now, and it was a charity game I played, and I got to play with some legends, including Phil Hellmuth and including Doyle Brunson, Texas Dolly, and it was, look, I went in just hoping, okay, maybe I can win one hand off them, maybe I can win a chip, and that will be a victory. And Doyle Brunson ended up going all in against me, and I had the better hand and beat him and knocked him out, which is truly a bucket list. Holy crap, yes. How did that happen?
Well done, Senator Ted Cruz, on many fronts. And thank you for all you do for this movement. So,
I appreciate it.
Thank you very much. All right.